Hello, this is author, blogger, producer, and podcaster Bobby Owsinski. You're listening to the Your Morning Coffee podcast with my friends Jay Gilbert and Michael Etchart. Weekly music news for the new music business.
From the Tennessean, Jack White didn't just release a surprise album, he made a stand for rock mystique.
And from Music Business Worldwide, Daniel Ek talks new Spotify Deluxe tier, the company's relationship with the music business, and more on the Q2 earnings call.
And from Glenn Peoples at Billboard, what you should know about UMG's Q2 earnings, uneven streaming growth, Facebook licensing, and more. Well, that's going to be very exciting, Jay, our former employers. I love hearing about what's going on over there. So we've got much to talk about. Jay and I are glad you're here, and we're going to get rolling right about now.
Stand by for transmission.
This is London calling.
Wake up! The revolution is at hand!
Your morning coffee is on the air. On the air. On the air. On the air. On the air.
Standing by.
Your morning coffee, the weekly music news for the new music business. It's the highly curated, agitated, advocated, moderated, and liberated digital music information that you need to know. We are your digital music authority. And now from our studios in Hollywood, California, here's your hosts, Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart.
Good to see you, Jay Gilbert, on a weird day for us recording, but hey, that's okay.
It really is. We typically record early on Saturdays, and today we're recording late on a Sunday because I've been doing some traveling. Did a little Nashville trip and just got back from Phoenix visiting family. What an amazing week, my friend. I wish you could have been with me. I got to visit Belmont University, which I've always wanted to do.
Cool
Love
place.
that campus. It's legendary for, training people in the music industry. And I met with the dean of Mike Curb College of Entertainment and Music Business, Brittany Schaefer, Amy Smith, who's a chairperson, associate professor, and Caroline Rupert, who does strategic partnerships. Just remarkable people, just a fantastic program over there, or I should say programs. And they've actually promised me a little bit of a tour. So next time I go back to Nashville in a week or two, I'm going to do a little tour of that beautiful campus over there. But what a fun week.
Bonsoir, bienvenue à Paris. Montre comme plomb des oiseaux, des animaux.
And listen to this, Jay. How about that track right there?
Oh my gosh. That's, Lady Gaga, she absolutely stunned everybody at the 2024 Olympics by performing that song in French. I mean, who does that?
Who does that? That's who does that, Lady Gaga. That was Lady Gaga, Mon Truc en Plume. That's live from the 2024 Paris Olympics. The show-stopping display opened on a gold staircase with a slew of dancers clad in black, holding puffy pink pom-poms that concealed the headliner's face after teasing her presence by doing a saucy dance with only her legs visible. The palms cleared from her face to show that Gaga indeed have arrived. What a gutsy move to do that.
It was stunning. I couldn't believe it. And what a classy move to like open up in French. You know, she's a Grammy winner, and she continued to belt out the French language tune, you know, which translates to My Thing with Feathers. And it was, you know, a highly choreographed routine. And, you know, at one point she was playing piano in honor of the game's host country this year, France. So she opted for a vintage Parisian cabaret-style performance, and she was hamming it up, and it was really special. So also, speaking of the Olympics, there was a super interesting piece in Billboard this week with the headline, "Who Gets Paid When a Song is Used in an Olympics Routine?" I thought that was super interesting.
Oh, yeah, it's fascinating. If U.S. gymnastics superstar Simone Biles were to perform her triple twisting double backflip to Taylor Swift's Ready For It at the Paris Olympics, as she did at the trials back in late June, NBC almost certainly won't need a costly special license to air the track live. NBC pays performing rights organizations ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC for blanket public performance licenses, and the PROs distribute the royalty payments to their hundreds of thousands of members, such as songwriters, publishers, and composers, all the way from Paul McCartney to Dua Lipa to Taylor Swift herself.
Yeah, these payments can add up to real money. The 2020 Olympics drew more than 3 billion users, you know, and that's a key factor in determining performance royalty payments. Quote, "The larger the audience for the broadcast will generally result in a higher royalty." And that was from an ASCAP spokesperson. So for the live TV broadcast or online live streaming, the blanket licenses cover all the necessary song rights. Foreign PROs, you know, they pay for foreign TV broadcast rights, and U.S. PROs pay for the U.S. rights.
But it gets trickier if NBC decides to use the song later, let's say in a delayed broadcast, highlight video, or some kind of YouTube-style on-demand streaming. In such cases, says Joy Butler, who's a Washington, D.C. entertainment and digital technology attorney and author of The Permission Seeker's Guide Through the Legal Jungle. That's a great title, by the way. NBC might need a separate sync license negotiated with a publisher. But Butler adds, but NBC might have reasons to not obtain that sync. They're reporting on the Olympics, which is a newsworthy event. That gives them excellent reasons to rely on fair use.
Ah, super interesting. You know, fair use refers to, you know, U.S. copyright doctrine in which journalists can air snippets of a recorded song in the context of a reported news story, you know, or they can quote lyrics while reviewing a record, for example. If an NBC News report on Biles' Olympic performance picks up a bit of "Are You Ready For It?" you know, from Taylor Swift, that may qualify, but NBC would have to tread carefully. Quote, "Fair use is very fickle," Butler says. "The cases kind of go both ways. So you have to do risk assessment if you've got music in the background, and you've got a taped version which is delayed or on demand."
So TV producers tend to be disinclined to contact rights holders and negotiate new and perhaps costly new licenses when using a song in the background of a recorded video. Butler, again, she went on to say it absolutely happens that producers will err on the side of caution and not have the music playing, just have the video run without the audio. An NBC spokesperson declined to comment for this story.
Yeah, they did. You know, This royalty-paying system can be cumbersome, but public venues, you know, such as the Bercy Arena in Paris and broadcasters such as NBC, they're used to it. Quote, "This is the same system that is in place for all audiovisual programming, including other sports event." And that's another quote from the ASCAP rep. So I thought that was really interesting because I was kind of curious, you know, when I hear these songs, do they have to get a sync license? Do they have sort of this blanket license? And it's almost a little bit of a combination of the two. But I thought that was really interesting.
Absolutely. No, it really is. And, we need to pay attention to where the money is going because obviously, especially in a lot of those gymnastics things, music is the key to the whole thing. I mean, they practice and practice and practice the routines around a specific song.
It's integral, right? And as Henry Droz used to tell me, God rest his soul, it's not about the money. It's about the money. So it's about the art, but it's always about the money.
When in doubt, it is about the money. Speaking of money, Jay, how about we thank our sponsors, because we are so lucky to have great sponsors help us put the show on every week. And I'll be honest, Jay, we could not do this without them, because they carry the load.
Yes, they certainly do. A special thank you to our newest sponsor, Music.ai. Music.ai is a trailblazing AI-powered music and audio platform offering an expansive suite of over 50 stackable AI audio solutions. You want to change the tempo or pitch of your song, adjust instruments or vocals, mute background noise in your song, your movie. Music.ai makes it super easy. Embraced by record labels, agencies, tech firms, and developers, Music.ai is synonymous with audio innovation. With over 45 million users, their tools process over 2 million minutes of audio every day. They can process yours. Visit Music.ai to get started.
And there's a lot of cool stuff there. I can just tell you that, because I've been fooling around with it. It's
that's right.
awesome.
You went in there and you talked to their CEO, and I saw the email exchange. That's cool.
Oh, yeah. Very cool stuff. By the way, the Your Morning Coffee podcast also brought to you by our friends at Bandzoogle. Built by musicians for musicians, Bandzoogle is an all-in-one platform that makes it easy to build a stunning website and online store for your music in minutes. All the features you need are already built in, including dozens of fully customizable templates, tools to sell your music and merch commission-free crowdfunding and fan subscription features, mailing list tools to grow your fan list, integrations with Bandcamp, SoundCloud, YouTube, Bands in Town, and more, so you can easily add content from your other online profiles, and live support from their musician-friendly team 7 days a week. Website plans start at just $8.29 a month, which includes hosting and your own free custom domain name. Our podcast listeners can go over to bandzoogle.com to try it free for 30 days and use the promo code MORNINGCOFFEE, all one word, to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. That's bandzoogle.com, promo code MORNINGCOFFEE.
Yeah, thank you so much. And also a big shout out to Hypebot. Since 2004, Hypebot has chronicled the new music industry and the trends and technologies that are changing how music is discovered, consumed, marketed, and monetized. Edited daily by founder Bruce Houghton with help from Milana Bonilla, Hypebot and sister blog Music Think Tank are published by live music discovery and marketing platform Bands in Town.
Yes, sir. Bands in Town. Over 80 million live music fans trust Bands in Town to get personalized concert alerts, recommendations, and messages from their favorite artists. It's the #1 artist service platform, connecting over 590,000 artists with their super fans. Managers, labels, agencies, and artists access their own dashboard to manage and promote their tour dates across all platforms.
Yeah, and one more special thank you, and that's to Billboard Pro. You want to know what everybody in the music business is talking about? Get in the know with Billboard Pro. Billboard is offering Your Morning Coffee readers a 50% discount off the price of your subscription. Just click on the link in Your Morning Coffee.
You betcha. Big thanks again to our amazing sponsors, Bandzoogle, Music.ai, Hypebot, and Bands in Town. We certainly appreciate it. And talking about appreciation, I get to hang out with Jay Gilbert every week. He's a music industry consultant, a curator of the weekly Your Morning Coffee newsletter, and a former executive with Universal Music, Sony Music, and Warner Music Groups. And when he's at the airport in Nashville, he gets to go into the little special room right there.
The room for
the lounge.
special people. And I get to do this podcast every week with my good friend Mike Etchart, longtime host of Sound and Vision Radio, formerly of SST Records, Warner Music, Capital EMI, and Universal Music Group. And next time I do go to Nashville, you have to come with me, because I had some people coming up to us, I mean, even in a restaurant one night, and I just wish you could have heard, some of the kind things that were said. But you were missed. You were there in spirit. Next time, you come with me.
I'm overdue for a trip, without a doubt, overdue for a trip. So hopefully the next time you go out, I can go out.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, let's jump into the stories, Jay. Our first one is from the Tennessee, and it's by Brian McCullum. Jack White didn't just release a surprise album. He made a stand for rock mystique. I love rock mystique. I leave it to Jack White to score another victory for vinyl records, but even more important, for the magic of absorbing new music with mystique intact.
Yeah, so before we jump into this wonderful piece by Brian McCullum over at the Tennessean, I want to play a little clip of audio from Music Mike 76 from his YouTube channel. He is a DJ on WDET, and this is his reaction to getting this little surprise gift in his bag at Third Man. Let's listen in.
You know, right around where our studio is, Third Man Records, just right across the street from us. It's always so cool to have them as neighbors. They got the pressing plant over there, selling a bunch of records, and I went over there to do some shopping this morning because that's just the level of music addiction that I have. And I buy a record, and they slip something into my bag. This white label just says no name on it, a mystery record. And I'm thinking, like, okay, what could this be? Third Man, you think about, like, Jack White. You think about, like, you know, he's kind of this Willy Wonka of music. And apparently from what I hear, if you go to Third Man Records, they're open until 8 o'clock today, anything you buy, they're going to slip one of these records in your bag. The same record that I got, this unmarked record that seems to be something really special. I've seen some speculation on the internet of what it could be. But I figured this is Detroit Public Radio. This is live radio. This is me and you listening to this mystery record that they slipped in my bag at Third Man Records today for the very first time. I think we're just going to get into it and try to see what this thing is. We'll figure it out as we go. All right, let's go ahead and check out and hit play on this mystery record I got today at Third Man Records.
Jackie said she wants you, so tell me how you're gonna be. She's acting like she owns you, disowned you, but nothing in the world is free. I think I need a tailor. This happens to me all the time. I'm cursing like a drunken sailor. I'm trading nickel for a dime, anytime.
That is so amazing. So that was an unannounced move. You know, Jack White's latest album came out Friday. You know, it's so funny. Unknowing customers who happened to be shopping at Third Man Records, and that was in Detroit, Nashville, London, you know, they were basically slipped a free album. And, you know, it was in a plain sleeve, said, you know, what did it say? No name on it. It literally said the words, no name. You know, plain white sleeve, 12-inch vinyl, pretty cool little marketing ploy.
Truly a white label product. There were minimal clues on the first eyeballing of this white vinyl platter that resembled a test pressing. If you remember test pressings back in the day, and now again. No artist, no title. Side A of the mystery record clearly featured 7 tracks with 6 on the flip side. If you scrutinized more closely, you could spot the inscriptions Heaven and Hell and Black and Blue etched into the runout grooves. And that was it.
Yeah, all very, very cryptic, you know, until you got yourself to a turntable and dropped the needle and heard the familiar singing voice of Jack White, you know, the Detroit-born rocker that has championed the value of vinyl for years. On a Friday when devastating technological problems brought computers around the globe to their knees, remember that? You know, he smacked a homer with an old-fashioned analog swing.
Yes, indeed. We got our copy of No Name during a mid-afternoon visit to Third Man's Cass Corridor shop in Detroit, and we're not going to purport to offer an authoritative review from a few quick listens following a long day at the Concert of Colors Festival happening nearby. There will be plenty of time to absorb the music this weekend, the article said.
Yeah, but the album is raw and spare and dominated by guitars and drums. You heard some of it just a moment ago. And I think that White Stripes fans are really going to love this with the occasional organ and vocal effect and, you know, the most to stray outside those lines, I guess. You know, Third Man officials were silent about the nature of the context of Friday's release. It's not clear if the album will get a formal release or even a real title. No official track listing has been revealed.
So whatever it is, they're safe to call it White's first new record since entering Heaven Alive, which was released 2 years ago this weekend as part of a 2-album salvo that including Fear of the Dawn, that spring of 2022.
Yeah, the digital wordplay, the digital world played its role on Friday. Online, word of the new White album began to circulate organically through third-man shoppers who'd wound up with a copy of this mystery record. By late afternoon, it had turned into a full-fledged viral moment as record recipients figured out what it was and enthusiastically exchanged info about their lucky get. Music magazines aggregated those social media posts to sort of hop on that buzz.
So a segment on Detroit's WDET-FM, where on-air personality Ryan Patrick Cooper played 5 of the album's tracks in a real-time spin of his just-acquired record, quickly took a holy grail status globally for White fans who shared a link to the online archive of the public radio program. The quiet album rollout wasn't just a clever headline grabbing gimmick, I should say. It was a throwback to the days when mystique meant something as a music lover.
Right. And that clip that we just played, that WDET, that was that Ryan Patrick Cooper that they talk about. Heading to a turntable Friday with a little information but tantalizing possibilities offered a pure and spontaneous experience, really harking back to a bygone era. Leave it to Jack. Before ubiquitous digital streaming and carefully calibrated marketing plans commodified this act. So this was 1975 with a new Led Zeppelin LP in hand. But in this case, minus even the album cover or liner notes, to be poured over, for meager tidbits of insight, for this musical journey to unfold.
Sure. Well, less is more has been White's approach since his days with the White Stripes a quarter century ago. Yes, it was a quarter century ago. Like other clued-in artists before him, from Oscar Wilde to Quentin Tarantino, he has long recognized that art is best created when boundaries and limitations are in place.
Wow. So perhaps we'll learn more about Jack White's new album in the coming days, coming weeks. Those revelatory nuggets were once part of the enchantment, too. So for now, we'll happily take No Name, just as it is, a new music offering with a healthy side of intrigue. What a cool marketing launch. Well played, Jack.
Idea.
Well played.
And when you learn about marketing, one of the first things you do is, well, what can I do? What can I take advantage of in terms of my resources that I might have internally? And Jack has obviously 3 record stores. He has a record pressing plant. So he can kind of pull something like this off in a way that it would be much more difficult for another artist. So he is wisely using all of those resources he has at his disposal and having a little fun with it. So
hey, we're talking about it and we're playing it.
And we're talking about it. Exactly. All right, let's jump over to number 2 story, Jay. It's from Music Business Worldwide by our friend Daniel Tenser over there. Daniel Ek talks new Spotify Deluxe tier, the company's relationship with the music business, and more on Q2 earnings call. The dispute between U.S. music publishers and Spotify has been one of the more dramatic music business stories of the year, without a doubt.
Yeah, but yet, despite sometimes harsh words that publishers have had for Spotify, over its decision to classify its premium music subscription tier as a bundle with audiobooks, we've been talking about that for weeks. That reduced the mechanical royalty payouts to song owners, songwriters, publishers. Spotify has made it clear that it doesn't plan to back down.
Nope. Ben Kung, who's Spotify's VP of Financial Planning and Analysis, and he's the interim CFO, I should say, said on the company's latest earning calls on Tuesday, many platforms take bundled treatments, so we're not unique in that regard.
Yeah, well, he also went on to say, we won't be commenting on the specifics of the mechanics of our deals. This is on that earnings call, of course. But all we can say is that we're very confident in our position and in the path that we're on at this point. So for his part, co-founder and CEO Daniel Ek suggested that even with reduced mechanical royalty payouts, Spotify will be paying out more to rights holders this year, and going forward. But you know what, Mike, when I'm reading that and I'm thinking about that, it's sort of changing the subject a little bit. You know, these bundles are sort of screwing the songwriters out of money, and just because you're paying a lot of money to rights holders doesn't make that right. I just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, totally. Eck goes on to say, I think a lot of people want to make this sort of a zero-sum game where we have to win in order for them to lose, or they have to win and then we sort of lose. It is not fundamentally how we view this at all. We look at it as much more of a win-win. Overall, whether on the publishing side or the label side, when I look at our numbers, we keep increasing our payouts year over year. And that's kind of the same, what you're saying. Well, yeah, but that's not really
what we're talking about.
Point.
You know, last year on the publishing side, this is Daniel Eck speaking here. Last year on the publishing side, we had record payouts, 2023. This year, 2024, we will beat those numbers and have even more payouts to publishers. And the same will, of course, be true with the label side. So it's not as much of a zero-sum game as most people make it out to be. I will respectfully disagree with you. The dispute began this spring when Spotify notified publishers that it decided to classify premium subscription plans as bundles in the U.S., given that since November, they've included 15 hours of audiobooks. And I will interject one last time. There was a piece from Billboard where they estimated that that could screw the songwriters through the publishers out of up to like $150 million. So even though you're paying out more to rights holders,
that's right,
there's $150 million that should have been on the dinner tables of these songwriters.
That's right. Under the U.S. Copyright Royalty Board's Phonorecords 4 rules, streaming services can pay out lower royalty rates from bundled streaming subscriptions than from standalone music subscriptions. That move drew a harsh response from the National Music Publishers Association, that's the NMPA, which accused the Sweden-headquartered streaming service of attacking the very songwriters who make its business possible, in the words of NMPA President and CEO David Israelite.
Yeah, Spotify's move also triggered a lawsuit by the MLC, that's the Mechanical Licensing Collective. We talk about that a lot. The MLC that's the body that's created, to collect mechanical royalties under the newer, the U.S.'s Music Modernization Act, the MMA. Boy, I'm stumbling. It's like I'm gargling with marbles here. The MLC, which says Spotify's actions have resulted in almost 50% reduction in the service provider's revenue, Spotify reports to the MLC from Spotify's premium, individual, duo, and family plans as a result of bundling, argued that Spotify's premium plans don't qualify as actual bundles because the addition of audiobooks didn't add anything more than token value to the subscription plans.
Right. So on the earnings call Tuesday, Spotify's Eck argued that despite there being things that we're arguing about, that's an understatement, the company has largely had a healthy relationship with the music business, and it's in Spotify's interest to see the industry grow stronger.
Yeah, Daniel Eck said, we are spending a lot of time and effort in making sure that it's going to keep growing. This is the primary thing that we're doing as a company and something we care deeply about as the core mission of this company. And I think that's recognized across the entirety of the music industry as well.
So Spotify on Tuesday reported its second straight quarter of profitability, the result of a pivot by the company from focusing on building a user base to improving margins in what Eck calls a year of monetization for the company.
Right. Spotify reported a record high operating income of, just over $286 million for Q2 of 2024, and its gross margin ballooned at over 29% from 24% the same quarter a year earlier. The number of paying subscribers grew to 246 million, and that's up 12% year over year, and an increase of 7 million paying subscribers from the previous quarter, and that beat their guidance, their estimations by 1 million.
If there was one area of weakness, though, it was Spotify's monthly active users, the MAU count, which came in at 626 million. While that was up 14% year over year, it missed guidance, as they call it, by 5 million. The MAU count is effectively the sum total of paying subscribers and the free ad-supported subscribers. So a quarter with strong paid subscriber growth and underwhelming MAU growth suggests weakness in the ad-supported side of the business. That has led some observers to wonder whether this means that Spotify's subscriber funnel is actually hitting a wall.
Interesting. Certainly Spotify doesn't think so. In its guidance for Q3, it's forecasting an acceleration of monthly active users, MAU, growth, with a net increase of 13 million, and that would total out at 639 million. So it's also predicting a 5 million jump in paid subscribers to 251 million, and growth in its gross margin over 30% on an operating income of about 405 euros.
Right. So here's 4 things we learned on Spotify's latest earning call. Number 1, Spotify has seen surprisingly little churn from its price increases. One way in which Spotify's pivot from customer acquisition to profitability can be seen in the sudden change to its approach to pricing. After years and years of no price hikes, which we've talked about a lot since we've had this podcast, Spotify raised monthly subscription rates in the summer of 2023, just last year, and less than a year later, it raised them again in certain key markets, including here in the US and the UK.
So analysts on these earning calls, they were curious to know whether those price hikes have resulted in churn, the polite business term for customers canceling their subscriptions. Per Spotify's leadership, apparently it hasn't. In fact, churn has been lower than they'd expected. The quote was, "We're very encouraged by what we're seeing in the 3 major markets, where we've had price hikes 2 times in the last 12 months, Kung said, on that earnings call, evidently referring to US, UK, and Australia.
Right. He also added, "We see that as a great data point for sort of what might be possible in the rest of our territories." But he cautioned not to take that hint of price hikes in other markets too much to heart. And it's still, as he said, early days in terms of the impact of a second price hike.
Yeah, he went on to say, "We've only just taken this action, but we're encouraged by it. The cancellation rates being better than expected." He also suggested that Spotify's recent launch of the new quote-unquote basic tier helped mitigate churn from the price hikes by offering customers the option of avoiding the price hike, assuming, of course, they're happy with the music-only subscription.
So recent research suggests that Spotify's churn rate has actually dropped dramatically in recent years, from 3.9% in 2021 to 2% last year, 2023, evidence that this streaming service's expansion from music into podcasts and audiobooks has helped with customer retention.
Yeah, and Spotify's stratification of its subscription plans is part of what helped the company reach profitability in recent quarters, and that's according to Daniel Ek.
Right. So X said, "By introducing new subscription plans, we are successfully giving subscribers even more listening choices with the options like the audiobook access and basic tiers that also builds on our already robust list of premium plans around the world, including individual, duo, student, family, and mini passes."
Yeah, and the second thing that they learned is the disappointing monthly active user numbers are a result of volatility in emerging markets. Daniel Ek offered an interesting explanation for why the growth in total active users hasn't lived up to expectations. The CEO said it has to do with the volatility in developing markets.
Right. So he explained our paid subscription business is primarily anchored in developed markets where growth today is driven by net subscriber additions and strategic pricing. He said, on the other hand, the growth of our free ad-supported segment is focused today on developing markets where we see potential to convert these users into subscribers, but on a much longer time horizon.
Right. He also added, we have significant potential to attract a large number of new users in developing markets. However, these users can be a little bit more inconsistent. Engagement looks different in these markets, as do the channels to acquire them. So the conversion to paid, it can be a little bit slower. This makes it difficult to get the same level of ROI effectiveness from our marketing spend compared to, those developed markets.
And Eck also suggests that lower MAU growth may not have the same negative impact on subscriber growth as it might have in the past. He said historically our conversion funnel was quite straightforward. A listener would come in as a free user and over time convert to our standard premium tier. This process has evolved given the bifurcation between developed and developing markets and the increased number of subscription offers we now offer.
Yeah, he also said that this means that the relationship from free to paid is no longer a one-size-fits-all scenario, and we're less dependent on new free users to fuel our revenue growth in the short term. And the third point was the success of Spotify's paid subscriptions has come, partly at the cost of its ad-supported business. Interesting.
Right. So one surprising thing that Eck mentioned on the call, though it makes sense when you think about it, is that some of the success of Spotify's paid subscription service has come at the expense of its ad-supported business.
Yeah, that's interesting. Asked by Lightshed Ventures analyst Rich Greenfield why ad-supported revenue hasn't reached the 20% share of total revenue that Spotify had been aiming for, Daniel Ek responded by saying that it had to do with listeners switching to paid subscriptions.
Right. So he said our subscription business is probably doing a little bit better than we expected it to do. And as a net consequence, one of the things that are happening is we're taking some of our best customers, our highest engaged users, and turning them into paid subscribers, which of course diminishes some of that potential that we have on the advertising side. So part of this is that the mix is improving in favor of the subscription side, he said.
Yeah. And number 4, a very large subset of users want the upcoming deluxe Spotify tier. So on the earnings call, Daniel Ek pretty much confirmed what has long been rumored and unofficially reported, that Spotify will be launching a new pricier super premium tier as part of its efforts to differentiate its paid subscription plans.
So Spotify's leadership isn't willing to share many details about this new subscription plan, though it's widely expected to include high-fidelity audio, a feature that Spotify has yet to roll out, despite it being available on some other streaming services for years at this point. Other possible features include access to superfan clubs and new playlisting and song management tools.
Yeah, this is going to be super interesting to see what they roll out. Daniel Ek described this new tier as being, for huge music lovers who are primarily looking for even more flexibility in how they use Spotify and the music capabilities that exist on Spotify. He continued with, the plan here is to offer much better version of Spotify, something like $5 above the current premium tier, sort of a deluxe version of Spotify that has all the benefits of the normal version, but more control, a lot higher quality across the board, and some other things that he said, I'm not ready to talk about just yet.
Well, okay. He was, however, willing to talk about the rationale behind creating a deluxe tier. He said, we think it's something consumers really are asking us to do, and we believe there's now a very large subset of that 246 million subscribers that want it. And he painted the new subscription tier as a positive, not just for Spotify, but for the music business as a whole.
Yeah, Daniel Ek went on to say, I talked about our relationship to the music industry and our commitment to growing the entirety of the music ecosystem. And so I think this is a great way where I think we can create a win-win for both, for the creative ecosystem, but also for consumers as well.
He said it would be a net positive for the entirety of the music industry and will further enhance the growth that the music industry is seeing. Well, it's tough to be talking out of both sides of your mouth, to be honest, when you've got the publishers on one side that you're really kind of hosing and then, talking about this other side of things. So we will obviously continue to follow this, but it is disappointing. It really is, because we talk about this all the time. Without songwriters, there is no music business.
That's right.
It is crucial that they be paid. And I think that they at the end of the day, they might be right about the fine print of what bundles can be, but it's such a bad look for a company that supposedly is artist friendly and and values the input from songwriters. It's just a bad look.
Yeah, I don't like it. I just don't think that's where they should be going. So we'll see how this rolls out. Clearly, they've been innovating for years and bringing out new tiers and new products and things, ways to market and reach your audience. And they are, if nothing, innovative. So it'll be interesting to see how they go.
Yes. Well, let's do our last story, Jay. It's from our good friend over at Billboard, Glenn Peoples. What you should know, yes, you, about UMG's Q2 earnings, including uneven streaming growth, Facebook licensing, and more. And it starts with number one. The good news, streaming is growing, albeit unevenly. Although UMG's recorded music subscription revenue improves by 6.5%, not all subscription platforms are performing equally well. CFO Boyd Muir cited a slowdown in subscriber growth at certain platforms, in quotation marks, while noting that Spotify, YouTube, and many regional and local platforms continue to show healthy growth. Generally, UMG is optimistic about the overall marketplace's ability to find new subscribers. Michael Nash, Executive VP of Digital Strategy, said UMG's consumer research has identified 180 million consumers from the top 19 territories, in quotation marks, that will form the next wave of subscription adoption, even taking into account price increases.
Yeah, and number two is something we've been talking about, but hasn't received a lot of press, and leave it to Glenn Peoples to pull this out. That's number two. Meta is no longer licensing Universal Music Group premium videos for Facebook. So another reason for the slowdown in non-subscription streaming revenue was Facebook's departure from music videos. Meta had previously offered, music videos on Facebook. Their CFO explained this product offering was less popular with Facebook's user base than other music products, and as a result, Meta is no longer licensing premium music videos from UMG.
And the third thing we learned is the non-controversial Spotify bundle controversy. Yes, that's seems kind of confusing. After Spotify began offering both music and audiobooks, as we've been talking about, the company asserted it can pay a discounted bundle royalty rate to publishers and songwriters for premium streams. When asked about the audiobooks bundle controversy on Tuesday, as we were just discussing, Spotify's CEO Daniel Ek described it as a unusual disagreement between counterparts. That's the nature of all supplier and distributor relationships, he said during the company's earnings call. UMG held a similarly unsensational response when asked about the bundle controversy. Rather than feeling cheated out of royalties, Muir said UMG is confident our revenue participation reflects the value our artists and our music is bringing to their platform.
Okay, then. Number four, the last one. Universal Music Group invested $562 million in the first half of 2024. 3 transactions accounted for most of it, $487 million of that investment in the first half of the year. A majority stake in Nigerian label Maven Global, an investment in Complex, and a $240 million investment in Chord Music Partners, a joint venture of KKR and Dundee Partners that own about 60,000 copyrights. Universal Music Group spent $104 million on catalog acquisitions in the first half of the year, including $81 million that had been sitting in an escrow account. So what I love about these earnings calls is you've got smart people like Glenn People who get on these calls. They listen to all of this and then they sort of summarize it for us knuckleheads so we can understand it. So thank you, Glenn. Exactly. We really appreciate that.
We do appreciate it, and it helps a lot because we are, as previously mentioned, sometimes kind of knuckleheads. And that always happens to me, Jay. I always have $81 million sitting in an escrow account.
Who doesn't?
Mine's so just exactly. Well, on that note, let us wrap up the show. We want to thank everyone for listening. Jay and I do not take that for granted. And if you enjoy the show, we'd certainly appreciate it if you just tell one friend, and Jay will, of course, go over to that person's house and mow their lawn for free. So big thanks to Bandzoogle, Music.ai, Hypebot, and Bands in Town. We certainly appreciate that. And on that note, thanks for listening. Jay and I will be back next week on the Your Morning Coffee Podcast.
You've been listening to Your Morning Coffee, the weekly music news program for the new music business. Join Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart next time for the digital music news you need to know.